has one last question from the chat.
That's great. Thank you. This is from Kerry Murakami, congressional reporter at the Washington Times. A big factor in the amount of student debt people owe is the cost of attending college. According to press reports, President Biden is proposing in the second phase of his infrastructure plan, making community colleges free. Do you have any indication of whether he'll also be proposing in this go around to make 4 years free too? If he doesn't, how disappointed would you be?
Far be it from me to speak ahead of our members, our leaders in Congress on this. I think, isn't this now the opportunity to do both? I mean, we're having a conversation, Mike. This goes back to your point. Here in Massachusetts, we've got a growing clean energy economy. I talked to a lot of guys, pipe fitters, people working on gas pipelines and the like. Now's the time, too, to talk about what kind of training, what kind of education do we need to move us forward? And workforce development, workforce training, vocational training. We got real opportunities here. So I don't think any of this is mutually exclusive, looking at the high cost of higher ed, right? I was able to get by waitressing as well in college. Looking at the high cost of higher ed, looking at the options for the kind of education that meets the job needs of where we're at, right? And also reckoning with the reality that for far too long, this student loan system has really disadvantaged so many Black and brown borrowers, white borrowers too. And now is a time where we can actually do something as proposed by this resolution that will make a meaningful and immediate difference. And wouldn't it be nice to move through this and move on to other parts of the recovery, right? I'm not worried about future bailouts or other things. We get this right, then we can build forward from there. So that's...
In addition to forgiving the debt, what other reforms would you propose in the student loan programs?
This is our last question.
Yeah, Mike, there have been a lot of them over the years. I mean, I think a lot of it starts with
What are you proposing?
I think we got to continue to do what we got to do. Look at what we for example, look at how veterans have been treated, okay, and used and exploited by for-profit schools, and already we've seen some changes in the way in which those entities are able to market and get veterans to sign up, for loans that we end up paying for, essentially. We've got to continue to crack down on predatory practices, both with the marketing of for-profit schools. And this is a space where the Congresswoman and I came to know each other on, and the Senator and I, has been such a leader on. And then the predatory loan, servicing practices as well that happen. So I think there's a lot of options there.
Do these veterans end up going to not-for-profit?
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do. They've been scammed by them. Absolutely.
They're going to these for-profit schools because they can't get into state schools.
Well, they're going to these for-profit schools in many cases because the for-profit schools cheat them. And they spend the money to go recruit our veterans. They recruit low-income workers with big promises that they don't deliver on. We've seen this business model over and over. Congress has just taken a step in reform as part of the American Recovery Act, and that is it has adjusted the 90-10 rule to say that these for-profit colleges have to be doing something more in terms of attracting students than simply bringing in student loan debt dollars. And so we have actually begun that process. The Department of Education has a lot of work in front of it in terms of student loan debt servicing and the number of people who have been put into the wrong repayment programs. It's a complex maze, and the student loan debt servicers far too often have done what is cheapest for them, whether it was the right thing for the person who's trying to repay their loans or not. So there are a lot of places where we need to make reforms in this area. And I'm for making all of them, but we start by canceling $50,000 of student loan debt. That's what we need to do. And that's what we're calling on President Biden to do.